Today I'm here to talk about how you can optimize healing with your partner. While I kind of do this in my healing analysis series, I feel like I can go more in depth when I'm not focusing on one fight. The purpose of this guide is to help give you an idea on how you and your co-healer can start mapping out healing abilities. I will be making this guide with means of it hopefully being relevant during 5.0 and beyond, so you can watch this video and the information I give you will still be of use. Starting off, healing is one of those roles where it can be hard to synergize the timings of abilities you have with your partner, especially in Party Finder. But for those healers that are struggling to push out DPS and want to improve their efficiency, then maybe this video is for you. Do note that this video will not be going into healer movement, uptime, and casting itself. That will be a whole different video later on. Instead, we will be talking about the spells and abilities all three healers have and how you can coordinate them with your co-healer. We will also be focusing on the optimization part, so progression will not be taken into account. During prog, you should be playing as safe as possible until you reach a spot where you need extra DPS. This means you'll be using extra soils, suckers, regens, and whatever you can throw out. This video will be going over the basic healing abilities all three healers have and how you can utilize them in an encounter. Once you understand how these abilities work, you can start utilizing the knowledge you gained here with your co-healer and map out your GCDs. Before we begin, I'd like to impart some knowledge on healers who may not have a concrete understanding of the fundamentals of healing. Firstly, healing in Final Fantasy XIV is very different than from any other MMO. All damage in this game is scripted and predictable. If a raid-wide AoE is going out and is going to do 30,000 worth of damage and the party has 35,000 HP, your immediate reaction would be to top them off. This is fine for progression healing when you don't know the timings of incoming damage. However, you should be seeing when the next spike of damage is going out and healing from there. If there is no immediate threat of damage coming out soon, then regens should be enough to top the party off before the next spike of damage. Do not underestimate the power of regen heals. They can top the entire party off while you and your co-healer focus on other things. Secondly, there is no such thing as a main healer or off healer. There are two healers who share a combined healing and damage kit. This maximizes both efficiencies of each healer. It is factually non-optimal for a healer to solo heal a fight while the other healer strictly DPSs. To put it bluntly, this mentality is incredibly incorrect and needs to end. Not only are you hurting your co-healer's damage, you are hurting your overall party damage and kill time. The argument of, but this is what my group does and it works for us, is constantly used to justify a bad playstyle, and I guarantee you will never improve as a player so long as you latch onto this mentality. Both of you should be talking to each other and communicating which tools are available at what time. For example, if a scholar can end at a certain part of the fight and free up a GCD slot from the other healer, that should 100% always happen. The cost of an energy drain is only 150 potency, which is nothing compared to Malefic 3, 220 potency, or Stone 4, 250 potency. Every GCD you spend casting a heal is the GCD you would lose otherwise casting a DPS spell. You don't always have to be at 100% HP for mechanics. Think of Bowels of Agony. A few healers I see like to top off the party before this attack goes off. This is a problem since this drops you to 1 HP regardless of what you do, making that cast null. Zircon Darlock examples GCD efficiency very well, and to quote, GCD efficiency is an important metric because the best way to get more damage is to spend more GCDs dealing damage. This means you need to spend fewer GCDs on healing in order to free up GCDs for damage. As discussed earlier, off GCDs are obviously the most GCD efficient because they're not even on the GCD. They're as free as it gets, use and abuse them. Looking at GCDs, healing over time abilities are more GCD efficient because they're not immediate. Then we have upfront GCDs. Cure 2 is more GCD efficient than Cure. Cure 3 is more GCD efficient than Medica. When possible, use the most efficient tools before you resort to less efficient tools. These are all the healing abilities in the game. Before we start off, I want it to be known that abilities such as largesse, fey illumination, dissipation, and diurnal and nocturnal sect do not apply to the abilities on screen now. They only affect healing spells which are on the GCD. Those are shown on the screen now. One last thing before we begin is that sometimes these abilities can be better than using these abilities. For example, Aspected Helios is stronger than Indom. This means if the use of Aspected Helios pushes you over the threshold of HP to live through a mechanic, but using Indom doesn't, then you would use Aspected Helios as it's more of a DPS gain. Some players may be asking, what is healer optimization? Healer optimization is what you and your co-healer begin to do after you finish progging a fight and can start taking risks. You will find out exactly how little healing you can get away with without having any party members die. When testing different healing strats, you should expect to die a lot. You're testing the minimum amount of healing required to pass a mechanic which can take multiple attempts. Patience is key. You're going to be pushing your healer synergy to the max as well as group synergy. Your DPS and tanks need to be using their utility, Feint, Reprisal, Troubadour, Dismantle, Addle, etc. I will not be going over abilities such as Cure and Cure 2, Benefic and Benefic 2, Physic, Medica, and Helios, as these should be cut down to a minimum, hopefully 0, in an optimized environment. This however does not mean you should ignore them, as in a panic situation where a tank drops unexpectedly to low HP due to a crit, or everyone's too spread out and miss a heal, then these are excellent abilities to heal the mech up on short notice. First off, we will start with the White Mage. We will be going over each healing ability and how you can utilize them in a run. I'm going to assume you have a Scholar co-healer as a White Mage for maximum potential. As a White Mage, your priority is to first make use of your limited off GCD heals like Tetra and Asylum. When those are exhausted, the priority then falls to the Scholar to plan how to fit their toolkit around the gap. When all other resources are used, a White Mage has to plan how best to optimize their powerful GCD heal use, like Medica 2 and Cure 3, to ensure the party survives without wasting healer GCDs. Regen heals for 1050 potency over 21 seconds. This is one of the strongest healing resources White Mages have. Not only is it that, but it's also an instacast, which means you can double weave before your next GCD. Regen is your best tool to manage auto attacks, especially when combined with Tetra and Divine Benison. How often you'll need to apply it depends heavily on the fight, but as long as you're not repeatedly overrunning the buff early, it's generally never a bad idea to apply it to the tank with aggro. Regen is good to be used when there's a period of long auto attacks and XCOG is down or not enough to handle it. If XCOG isn't enough and requires some outside source and Divine Benison, Tetra, or Fey Union aren't off cooldown, then it will be better to use Regen as it will save a use of said skill. It's also keen to note that Regen is an essential skill in the White Mage's kit, as it gives them 2 off GCD spaces and only costs 840 MP. If they have to move and Arrow 2 is already applied, it can also be used as a movement tool, as it will likely save healer GCDs over the course of a fight. Medica 2, a 700 potency AoE heal. It heals 200 up front and 500 over the course of 30 seconds. Medica 2 has a high cast time of 3 seconds and a longer area of effect than all other healing abilities at 20 yalms. The most efficient way of handling this skill is to pair it with Swift Cast due to it having a 3-second cast time, as well as giving you the ability to use Plenary Indulgence after without clipping. A good ability to use if the potency of Indom or Whispering Dawn won't top off the party before the next big hit. Cure 3. Cure 3 is a 550 potency AoE heal with a 2-second cast time and does not grant a lily upon being healed. Cure 3's potency increases twofold, putting it at 1.1k heal per GCD when there is a tank buster that requires 2 targets to be hit. Think double attack, double rocket punch, and twin bolt. Asylum heals for 900 potency over the course of 24 seconds. It has a small radius of effect at only 6 yalms, so be sure to place it so tanks and DPS can both stand in it. There are multiple good spots for Asylum since it's so versatile, so you can save it for after AoE damage goes out and there won't be any heavy damage coming for 30 plus seconds, allowing you to get the full effect, or you can place it so the tank taking damage receives a passive regen. Assize heals for 300 potency and does damage for 300 potency, while also restoring 10% of your MP. Due to the short cooldown and power of this skill, Assize should be used on cooldown for raid buff alignment if damage buffs are present. If possible, try to line up with incoming damage as it's a free 300 potency heal, but it's not worth misaligning it from buffs as that is more of a damage loss. It's less of a damage loss to do an extra Medica/Medica 2 than it is to misalign Assize from raid buffs, so keep that in mind. Tetragrammaton, a 700 potency heal on a designated target, has a recast timer of 60 seconds. Try to always keep this ability on cooldown as it is insanely strong for the short cooldown it is on. However, don't use it on cooldown if you're not going to get any value from it. Wait for that moment. Tetra has a higher priority on the list of skills that need to be used before any other resources. Benediction restores all the target's HP. This is not an oh shit move. I see so many healers just holding this ability and not doing anything with it through a hold encounter because they were saving it as a panic button. You should be using your spells proactively and not reactively. Spots where Benediction excels is when there is a tank buster and the tank uses Holmgang or Living Dead. However, this does not mean to necessarily save Benediction for those tank busters. There are fights where there isn't a use of an invuln until more than 4 minutes into a fight. If there's a potential spot where you can weave Benediction with no loss and have it back up for where you need it, you should always use it. Plenary Indulgence heals for 150, 300, or 450 potency depending on the amount of confessions players have. Players are granted confessions each time you heal their HP with Medica, Medica 2, or Cure 3. It's a nice little extra heal after you cast one of the aforementioned skills if you can weave its usage, giving a 150 potency boost. Your most frequent use of Plenary will be after a swift cast Medica 2 as you won't clip your GCD using it. There are fights like Ultimate where this is an exception, where you build stacks then unload. Divine Benison eats incoming damage up to 15% of the maximum HP of the target it's put on. Giving it to a tank with a maximum HP of 70,000 makes it the equivalent of a free 10,500 shield, or theoretically a free cure every 30 seconds. However, due to the limited white mage off GCD space, it is not worth clipping to apply it, so try to keep it on cooldown when you have the option to weave it unless otherwise planned. Sorry for the lack of emphasis on some abilities, as neither my co-healer nor myself play white mage that much, so I had to ask help from an outside source. If you have any questions or would like to see white mage gameplay and optimization, check out Levy over at twitch.tv/saltedlevity. As we start to delve into Astrologian, I will be using clips from Ari as well as myself and Rin for examples. If you're interested in Astro gameplay or have any questions, check out twitch.tv/AriKey. When playing as an Astro, your main goal on healing will be to cover raid-wide AoE damage with your Earthly Star and Collective Unconscious. Timing your Star and Collective for the most opportune moments will be one of your biggest challenges. Astro has a few tools to deal with auto attack damage, but only in small amounts. Scholar's ability to deal with prolonged autos makes it a perfect match with Astro, whereas White Mage falls short in the healer synergy. Aspected Benefic heals for 1144 potency, 220 up front and 924 over 18 seconds. The strongest healing spell Astrologians have. It is an instant cast which enables you to double weave after using it. It can also be extended by Celestial Opposition, which would make the potency 1606. You can add time dilation to the already buffed Aspected Benefic and increase the duration by another 15 seconds, turning that into a 2376 potency heal. This can save multiple healing GCDs if used correctly. Aspected Benefic shares a similar rule set to Regen where it can be better over using Aetherflow stacks. Here are some scenarios. Excog isn't enough and no other resources are available at the time, or if the loss of an energy drain drains the Scholar's MP to the point of you losing a cast of Miasma 2 or Broil 2, making it a loss of 350/380 potency versus 220 potency. This is really only a concern in healing heavy fights like 06 and 08. Good spots for Aspected Benefic are right before downtime ends, as it's a free heal as long as MP allows, or heavy auto attack periods. To backtrack a bit, remember it's always better to save aspected benefit casts with Fey Union or XCOG, and using aspected benefit over XCOG is only for situations where the absurd amount of healing from aspected benefit covers multiple uses of resources. Aspected Helios, a 660 potency AoE heal. Aspected Helios heals 220 up front and 440 over the duration of 30 seconds. Useful in situations after an AoE goes off and no more heavy damage is going out for 30 or more seconds, or where the regen is enough to sustain incoming damage. As stated before, Aspected Helios can have a higher priority than Indom if the conditions are met. Those conditions being when you would still need an extra heal on top of the used Indom, but wouldn't need an extra heal if you just use Aspected Helios. Essential Dignity, a 400 potency heal at 100% HP, 700 potency heal at 50% HP, and a whopping 1000 potency heal at 1 HP. This ability is very potent, boasting a recast time of only 40 seconds as well. Essential Dignity shares the rule set of Tetra and Benediction. You want to use this ability on cooldown, but you also want to save it for Holmgang and Living Dead windows. Earthly Star, a 540 potency AoE heal that also does 150 potency of damage. After 10 seconds, it gains the effect of Earthly Dominance, which increases the heal potency to 720 and damage potency to 200. This is the third highest AoE healing ability in the game, and to boast even more, it's an off GCD, on a 60-second recast timer, and does 200 potency worth of damage. This ability takes some planning to use, but once you have this ability mapped out, your co-healer will appreciate you. Make sure you place it carefully as it only has a radius of 10 yalms. Earthly Star is an interesting ability to optimize because you have 3 scenarios to account for. 1. Using it under buff windows. 2. Holding it and using it outside of a buff window to save a GCD. And 3. Using Stellar Burst as a heal to save a usage of a GCD or Indom. For the first scenario, let's use MNF as an example. There's no need to hold Star for the pile pitch as there's no damage to worry about afterwards, and you can have Collective to top up from that. For the second scenario, think of Chaos. If you delay your Star and use it at around 4 seconds of the fight, it'll miss the burst window but will save a GCD/Indom from Tsunami, as it will heal up after the damage goes out, topping you for Ember Smash. And for the third scenario, in Ultima during Titan, we pop a small Star for the second set of Tumults, as it saves me having to use Indom. The cost of a small Star is 50 potency, while the cost of an Indom is 150 potency and 1200 MP. While you always want to try to get a big Star off, there are niche situations where using a small Star is optimal. Collective Unconscious, a 750 potency heal over the course of 15 seconds, as well as a 10% damage reduction. One of the highest potency AoE heals in the game, and when extended by Celestial Opposition, it goes far and beyond the strongest off GCD heal in the game at an insane 1200 potency. You're going to want to use this ability when there's big AoE damage going out, or you need a strong regen. After the initial use of Collective, you will gain a 5-second damage reduction buff and a 15-second regen, so using it in locations where it covers damage plus providing the regen to top up the party is preferred, as you get the most mileage doing that. Think of Earthquake, Hawkmorn, and Ion of Flux. Collective can also be used as a single target regen on the tank and extended with time dilation for a 30/40 second regen, making its potency a maximum of 1950. This is good to use when it can save multiple healing resources like in Uwu and O10S. Celestial Opposition, CO for short, extends any buff you use that has affected you or any of your party members by 10 seconds. This is very useful as it can extend your regens, Collective Unconscious, Potion, Cleric Stance, Lucid Dreaming, Lightspeed, and cards. You can use this ability to extend Aspected Helios and Collective for an additional 132/450 potency, or even extend Star to reach damage points so you don't have to hold it. To note, unless you can afford the MP sync, you should always try to align your Lucid with CO. Meaning, if you need to use CO for a collective heal, try to line it up so it registers under Lucid as well. Plan use of cards and healing over time windows around when CO comes up, rather than the reverse, as the relation between Lucid and CO is very strict. Time dilation extends the duration of buffs you've casted on a party member by 15 seconds. This ability has a lot of versatility. On one hand, you can use it to increase the duration of a card effect on a selected party member. On the other hand, you can use it to increase the regen effect on a selected tank. Let's use an example where we're put into a scenario where the tank is taking a lot of auto attack damage and requires several healing resources to stay alive. The tank has an aspected benefit plus collective unconscious regen, while AoE balance just went out. What would you do here? The most optimal solution would be to time dilate the tank. While it may seem like extending balance on a DPS is better, there will be no potency loss for the DPS, and generally the extra 15-second regen will save healer GCDs, which nets an overall gain in this situation. But in other cases where you would only be saving an XCOG, it would be better to extend the card on a DPS. Proper time dilation enables healers to save multiple GCDs, so be sure to look at every situation from more than just one perspective. Synastry. Synastry only affects single target healing, thus making there only two ways you can use this. Applying Synastry to one target, then healing a second target, causing the first target to receive 40% of the heal applied to the second target. You can also use Synastry to heal the same target for the 40% secondary heal. Because normally you'll want to minimize your usages of Benefic, and since Synastry does not affect off GCD heals and regens, it might seem a bit out of place to use. However, Living Dead would be a good place to utilize Synastry with Benefic too, turning a 22k heal into a 31k heal or 49k if it crits. Synastry also turns Aspected Benefic into a 10k on-hit heal instead of a 7k because your Synastry target is hit by 2 heals, once with a normal Aspected Benefic and then hit by a weaker one at 40% value equaling around 3k at eye level 370. If the Aspected Benefic crits, it turns into an extra 5k heal. Keep in mind that Synastry does not affect the regen applied whatsoever. Eye for an Eye. While this skill can be used by all healers, Astrologians are the only one that can really utilize it without it being a DPS loss. Scholar and White Mage have limited off GCD space, and using Eye for an Eye will usually result in a DPS loss on them due to the clipping that needs to be done to use it. Astra does not have that problem. It's also keen to note that Eye for an Eye can be extended with time dilation and celestial opposition, so using it in the opener and increasing it to 30 seconds is ideal. When using time dilation on a tank, try to put Eye for an Eye on them beforehand so they have it for 35 seconds or 45 seconds if paired with celestial opposition. Good spots for Eye for an Eye are during periods of long physical auto attack damage and spots where the boss has auto attacks before a big hitting ability that could proc it and reduce the damage of. Omega M, O11S between Atomic Ray, O9 during Earthquake, and Ifrit and Ultima come to mind. Lady of Crowns, a 500 potency heal. Due to the 50% chance of gaining Lady of Crowns when using Minor Arcana, on top of the RNG of pulling a bad card, there's no true way to consistently utilize this ability. Instead, we will follow some simple rules. If you pull a lady, use it on the main tank if it will prevent an incoming heal, as it will negate the use of that skill later on. Using it on the main tank also makes crit autos less of an annoyance. If using Lady on the main tank wouldn't gain anything, the next best option is to give it to the warrior as their upheaval is based on their HP. If the tanks don't need it and won't need it, you can use it on a low HP party member so the fairy can focus more on the tanks. Try to always use a Lady card on someone outside of your opener, even if it's a little bit of healing on them. In terms of how long you should hold on to a Lady if you pull it, it's okay to hold on to it up until the point your draw is about to come off cooldown, because if you need to use Minor Arcana, you take an extra GCD to get rid of it if you do end up needing to use Minor Arcana on it, drifting your card CD, which is not okay. Lady of Crowns has the lowest priority in terms of off GCD usage, so make sure you're not delaying other off GCDs by using it. Moving into the final section of the video, Scholar. As we talk about Scholar's abilities, keep in mind what I've taught you already. think of how you can use these abilities in conjunction with White Mage and Astro. As a scholar, you're going to be filling in the gaps of healing where your Astro and White Mage can't cover. Say you're healing with an Astro. This means if there's a spike of damage in between Earthly Star and Collective, your main job is going to be figuring out how you can handle it optimally, whether it be using Indom or moving CDs around to compensate. Your next job is going to be dealing with auto attack damage. As a scholar, you have multiple tools that can handle auto attacks and can save your co-healer many GCDs, mainly Embrace, Rouse, and Fey Union. Deployment tactics. Spreads Galvanize and Eye for an Eye to all targets to a radius of 10 yalms. It might seem weird that this ability is the first one talked about, but the reason for that is due to the fact that both of Scholar's core healing abilities utilize this skill. I'll go more in depth on how these skills work together with Deploy when we get to them. When using Deploy, there's a slight delay from deployment tactics going off to others getting the shield, a double-edged sword of sorts. Because of this, you can deploy right before an AoE goes off, but due to the net frame, the damage goes off before the shields actually register, spreading throughout the party so you'll still have them afterwards. Adloquium, a 600 potency heal in the form of a 300 potency heal and 300 potency shield. For example, let's say you use Adlo and it's a 6k heal. That's a 6k heal on a party member plus a 6k shield totaling for 12,000 HP. When you crit an Adlo, the shield potency is doubled. Let's say you crit an Adlo for 10k. That's a 10,000 heal plus a 20,000 shield. When using Adlo, you should always be deploying it afterwards. There's no situation where you should be using Adlo as a heal when you have Excog in the equivalent heal that is Lustrate that is also an off GCD. There are 3 scenarios where Adlo deploy is good, the first one being when you need a very strong shield. Think of Earthquake and Hello World, where you use Adlo on a tank with Convalescence, Min, and Largesse, and then you deploy. The second scenario being where you need shields and Succor could suffice. However, if you crit the Adlo, it saves you or your co-healer a GCD or Aethaflow stack. This is something that is done during Ultima and O12. The final scenario is when you need to use it for LB cheese, deploying a strong shield when the party is at critical HP. Doing so acquires a lot of LB when getting hit by boss damage as it pushes you over the threshold for lethal damage. Here are 2 examples in O11 of that happening. Succor, a 375 potency overall AoE heal broken down in the form of a 150 potency heal and 225 potency shield. It's important to note that Succor does not share the same effect as Adlo, where if the ability crits, the shield will be doubled. It will still have a 150% increase. Useful when you need to mitigate moderate damage where Adlo deploy would be overkill. Using deployment tactics on Succor shields actually has more value than deploying Adlo shields if there is no Convo or Min on the Adlo and some criteria are met. That criteria being there is back-to-back AoEs that the Succor shields last long enough for, and that the fairy does not get damaged during those AoEs. How this is possible is because a lot of damage in this game does not hit the fairy, letting you deploy a full Succor shield after an AoE goes off. To pull this off, you want to use Succor, get hit by said damage, and then deploy the Succor shield off your fairy. This is useful during Garuda's frictions or during Omega M and F where there is consecutive AoE damage. Emergency Tactics transforms a shield from Adlo or Succor into a heal, turns Adlo into a purely 600 potency heal, and Succor into a 375 potency AoE heal. Useful when there is need for immediate burst healing like in O4S and O8S. Indomitability, a 500 potency AoE heal that is instant cast, costs 1/8 the flow stack, and has a recast time of 30 seconds. This is the strongest Aetherflow ability Scholar has. It costs 1/8 the flow stack, which means you lose an energy drain and a 1200 MP and 150 potency that goes with it. However, that is a small cost when compared to the amount of utility it brings. Indom should always be a priority over a White Mage and Astro having to cast a GCD/extra heal, as you lose far less than what they would lose. There are situations where using a Medica 2 or Aspected Helios equates to a smaller loss over using an Indom. That's when the healing from an Indom wouldn't push you over the HP threshold for living through a mechanic, but the regens would. Good spots for Indom are gaps of the fight where Asylum/Collective and Earthly Star/Assize don't cover. In between Knockdown and Earthquake, right before the second set of ads in Garuda, and during patch in 012 are good examples of this. Lustrate, an instant cast 600 potency heal. Costs 1/8 the flow stack and has a recast time of 1 second. Lustrate is amazing for emergency moments where you need an immediate heal. You lose 1200 MP and 150 potency. However, compared to its 600 potency equivalent ad Loquium, it is cheaper as you would lose 360 more MP and 70 more potency, or XCOG, which is 200 potency more. Try not to use this ability when optimizing, as there's not many, if any, situations where it's useful. Excogitation, an 800 potency heal that procs after the target's HP falls below 50%, or if the duration of the buff wears off. Lasts for 45 seconds and costs 1/8 the flow stack. A stronger Lustrate and a lot more useful due to the 45-second duration of the effect. An excellent tool to negate your co-healer having to heal the tank for tank busters or auto attacks, as this plus fairy healing should be enough. Good spots for XCOG are during periods of long auto attacks and or after a tank buster to help top them off. O10S and Nail are prime examples of this. Sacred Soil creates an area of effect that reduces all damage taken by 10%. Costs 1/8 the flow stack, is instant cast, and has a recast timer of 30 seconds. Sacred Soil is by far the most lackluster Aetherflow abilities Scholars have with the addition of all their new toys in Stormblood. However, Sacred Soil has its merits. If the damage reduced by Soil is more than what an Indom heals and saves you more, then Soil outweighs Indom. However, those scenarios are far and beyond. Two spots that come to mind are Garuda Frictions and Mega Flare plus Tank Buster and Thermo plus Mega Flare combos in UCOB. Now let's talk about some of the fairy skills. When optimizing, you should be planning to use Selene as much as possible, so this means no Whispering Dawn and no Fey Covenant. However, I will still go over these for groups that do use them or in the situation where Eos becomes meta again, like in Creator. Do note that every skill a fairy has is off the global cooldown, but requires no off GCD space to use, which is what makes them so strong. Fairies also have a slightly lower potency per spell than you at 14.8 heal per potency versus 22.5 heal per potency, so keep that in mind when measuring potency. Embrace, a 250 potency heal on a 3-second recast time. Both Eos and Selene can use this ability and acts like a passive regen throughout the fight. They will start casting this heal when any party member drops below 80%. However, you can sort of null this by making a mouse over macro and spamming it over the selected party member. This will make it so the fairy will cast it regardless of what their HP percent is. Embrace is one of the reasons why Scholars have an easier time DPSing. While the Scholar is using DPS spells, the fairy can be using Embrace or any other spell in their arsenal. There are some neat tricks you can do with Embrace, and that is place cancelling or action cancelling to proc Divine Veil or to heal someone. Place cancelling involves placing your fairy to cancel its current action and then using Embrace on a target, usually the Paladin, to proc Divine Veil. However, with Selene you're open to more options. Because Selene has two virtually useless abilities, Fey Caress and Silent Dusk, you can use these abilities to cancel her current action, which involves less mouse moving. Whispering Dawn, an 840 potency AoE heal over the course of 21 seconds. Since this is such a versatile ability, there are multiple scenarios you can use it in. You can use this ability when there are long breaks in damage and the passive regen will top people off before the next mechanic, or use it to negate incoming damage such as the Almagest dot. Whispering Dawn can also act as a tank regen if there is no AoE damage going out in the coming minute. With that in mind, there is no true spot for me to tell you where to use it, and it is up to your discretion. My co-healer and I usually use it as a tank regen or in between star and collected windows. Fey Covenant increases your magic resistance by 20%. This skill is kind of like how Foresight was back in Heavensward. The ability scales off your magic defense stat and is not a flat increase. The actual magic damage reduced is dependent on the job. Physical DPS get a 6.7% reduction, 8.8% reduction for healers and casters, and 16.7% for tanks. The higher your magic defense, the stronger Fey Covenant will affect you. Meaning the value of Fey Covenant scales with your eye level. However, you should still actively use this to mitigate damage as it's still a strong skill. Use this when there's high damage going out like Hello World or Almagest, and it saves the use of an off GCD or GCD. Fey Illumination provides anyone within a 10 yalm radius with the effect of a 10% increase in healing received. This stacks with Largesse and Rouse and can be affected by healing spells, so Adlo, Aspected Benefic, Regen, and Embrace are all affected by it. This is another very versatile ability. You can use it to increase the potency of your Adlo shield, or use it to increase the potency of Regen/Aspected Benefic. If used properly, it can save GCD heals, or even save AoE heals if the circumstances allow. Fey Union, a 480 potency heal every 3 seconds to a max of 30 seconds. Every 3 seconds, Fey Union depletes the fairy gauge by 10. This is the only tool scholars have that can consistently make the fairy focus on a single target. Even though you cast the command of Fey Union, it still comes from your fairy, making it suffer from pet potency scaling, meaning 480 potency a tick is 336 potency. Micromanaging this ability will enable you and your co-healer to DPS more, as it is a 10k heal on a target every 3 seconds. Proper Fey Union management is important when optimizing, as it can save multiple aspected benefics, regens, and even off GCD resources like Divine Benison and Tetra. Fey Union excels most when there are long periods of downtime with constant auto attacks. Think of 06 and 012. However, due to its extremely versatile nature, it can do good in just about any situation. Tank needs to be topped off before a tank buster? Done. Tank needs a little extra healing after Home King or Living Dead? Done. Make sure you're communicating with your co-healer on where using Fey Union would save them having to heal. Rouse increases pet healing by 40% for 20 seconds. Since this is on a 60-second cooldown, you almost always want to keep it on cooldown unless otherwise planned. Rouse increases Embrace potency to 350, turning Embrace from a 5k heal to a 7k one. Rouse is a good ability to use between Fey Union's downtime and is crucial when using Selene in healing heavy fights. Just like with Fey Union, communicate with your co-healer to see where using Rouse would be most optimal, as it can save a potential GCD. Dissipation removes your fairy from battle, giving you 3 Aetherflow stacks and a 20% healing output increase for 30 seconds. Note that you cannot resummon your fairy during these 30 seconds. While strong when met under certain conditions, it can also be very weak. You gain 3 Aetherflow stacks, which equates to 3 energy drains or 450 potency / 3600 MP, and a 20% increase to your healing. However, you also lose access to your fairy and will have to resummon her after the timer runs out, which is a GCD lost unless cast during downtime. Proper use of Dissipation will usually net you a gain of an extra Aetherflow cycle, turning that 450 potency into 900 potency. Dissipation is good under these conditions. There is going to be downtime in a fight relatively soon where you won't need your fairy and are able to resummon before the boss becomes targetable again. The effect from dissipation will save you a GCD, the MP you gain from using dissipation saves you a GCD, or the fight's about to end. With all the healing abilities talked about, below is the priority system made by Tobio Okuma you should more or less follow before resorting to less efficient tools. Use this as a checkmark list to see if you have any available tools when mapping out a fight. Below is a rough concept as fight design should be taken into consideration. Before we end the video, I want to discuss how important it is for the party to use all the mitigation and healing tools that are at their disposal. When looking at others' logs, while tank tools are used pretty frequently, when I check for DPS mitigation there's hardly any use. And I think DPS mitigation is just as important as the tanks. For example, let's look at our 011 spreadsheet. If we look at the DPS mitigation tab, we see plenty of abilities being used. Second Wind, Bloodbath, Erase, Feint, Troubadour, etc. One section I want to focus on is the update program at 535 up until Long Needle Kyrios at 650. Here we see that the Dragoon and Ninja are using Second Wind after the Flamethrower. We do this because ultimately in the long run it saves an aspected Helios. A few more examples at the top of my head of DPS tools saving healing resources is having the two melee DPS use Second Wind and Bloodbath for the Ice plus Out mechanic and Akurize in 010. This saves an Indom, as after the Azure Wing they will drop to critical HP, and will need to be at give or take 20k HP for the Akurize. Using Bloodbath plus Second Wind pushes them over this threshold without using any healer resources. Erase can also have coordinated use. In 011 we have the Bard take the Blaster tether and the Paladin cover him. Thing is, you have to be topped off for that tether, otherwise you get a Doom debuff and sometimes they can be missing a few thousand HP. Using Erase here on short notice to top him is good use of it as it saves a minimum of 150 potency from a healer and costs a summoner 20 potency, 0 if under Ruin 4. There's also no real reason to not use Erase during your Bahamut and Dreadworm Trance windows, as you have free off GCD space, and it helps with auto attack damage. If you are a red mage, you should have free off GCD space after an instant cast ability, and if you're a black mage, try to get off Erase after a Thundercloud or Fire 3 proc if you have nothing else to weave. We use Erase specifically in 012 as it helps massively with the auto attacks due to using Selene. Focusing more on the mitigation side of DPS cooldowns, using Physical Troubadour during 011 to catch the first set of fists and Electric Slide helps a ton. This saves 2 healer GCDs as the combination of Shake, Veil, and Troubadour drops the first set of players to just enough HP to survive the Electric Slide without any healing, letting you save Starve for after the stack and using it to top the second set of players' HP for fists. In Uwu, Troubadour is also very strong in final phase as it saves the use of Sacred Soil and a healing GCD. For Feint, the most notable uses are during Uwu, where using Feint for the first and second Titan busters will save the use of an Excog. Proper use of it can also save resources in 012, more so when using Selene. While there are many more tools I could give examples for, the last one I'm going to speak about is Addle. If you have a summoner, Addle should only be used as a last resort when optimizing, as they lose a massive 150 potency, which means unless this saves a healing GCD, you should never use it for mitigation. Thankfully for summoners, these spots are very rare. This doesn't mean you should ignore it for mitigation purposes. If a spot comes up during your Bahamut window where you can use it to mitigate without losing anything, you absolutely should. As stated before, as a red mage and black mage, you should be using mitigation tools whenever you have free off GCD space. I reiterate, while Reprisal, Shake, and Divine Veil get a lot of credit, I feel like not enough people truly understand how important DPS mitigation is, as even that alone can save multiple healing GCDs throughout the fight. Here is a list of all the mitigation tools you can use as a DPS and tank. Use this as a checklist to see what tools you can use when mapping out CDs. Thank you guys for watching. I want to give a huge shout out to Defina for proofreading and editing my script, Levi for helping me with the White Mage section, Ari and Rin helping me with the Astro section, and Praxius, Ayase, and Tobio for helping me with the Scholar section. I also want to give a shout out to Tobio Okuma for their awesome charts. All channels will be linked in the description, so be sure to give them a follow. Again, thank you for supporting me, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button as I have more similar guides planned.